Hello ladies and gentlemen and video game lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video it is going to be another ranking. And I am going to be ranking every Call of Duty launch from worst to best. Now, just as a little preface, when I say every Call of Duty, I mean from Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare onward. Because for those of you who are familiar with Call of Duty's history, Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3 are a completely different beast compared to what we have today. And that evolutionary point in Call of Duty's life was with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And every game since then has been building upon that exact formula. So I don't really see a need to include Call of Duty 1, 2, or 3 on this list. I also wanted to make a note as well that this ranking will be based off of both quantity and quality. Since we are speaking strictly about the launch days for these games, quantity is very important because we don't want to feel like we are being cheated out of our hard-earned cash for stuff that we know is already finished and should be in the game at launch, but they're just going to drip feed it to us down the line, and they used to do that for more of our money. Thankfully, not the case anymore, but it was certainly a pain in the ass back in the day. So that's where quantity is going to play a big role, but at the same time, a lot of these games, especially those released roughly around the same time, all had roughly the same amount of maps and weapons, so on and so forth. You know, many of them have launched with 14, 15, 16 maps, so when it comes down to those numbers, if a game, say, has 14 maps at launch, but some really great maps, compared to a game that had 16 maps at launch, but they weren't all that fun to play, then I'm going to give the edge to the game that only has 2 less maps, but much more memorable maps. And the reason I am doing this video is because Call of Duty Vanguard just released this weekend as of the recording of this video, and Call of Duty is undoubtedly the most popular FPS arguably of all time. It's a franchise that we all love, or love to hate, and launch day can really make or break a game. So, where does Vanguard stack up against the rest? And before we get into this video, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos. So be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so, with all that being said, let's hop right into things. Number 15, Call of Duty World War II, which launched with 13 maps, 31 weapons, 18 perks, 11 modes, 13 streaks, and a zombies mode. Okay, I think we all saw this one coming, because Call of Duty World War II was undoubtedly the worst launch in Call of Duty's entire history, at least in my opinion. First off, the big headquarters hub area that they were trying to sell so hard did not work at all for the first few weeks, if not longer, after the game's launch. On top of that, out of the 13 maps that it launched with, only 9 of them were 6v6, and one of those 9 was Gustav Cannon, which is arguably the worst map in Call of Duty's history. 3 of the other maps were for the war mode, which I will touch on in just a moment, and one of the other maps you only got if you had the season pass, which was the Call of Duty 2 Keratin map remake. And speaking about the perks, yes, there were 18 perks, but they were renamed to basic trainings in this game, and at launch you could only use 1 at a time. That's because in this game they introduced this whole division system, which had certain perks and abilities tied only to that division, which was a nice, neat little idea to try and shake up the usual Call of Duty formula, but it failed miserably, and even Sledgehammer recognized this, and later down the line in the game's life cycle, they just did a huge overhaul of that entire system because it was awful. And the last little thing to shit on for this game, and it sucks because I was happy to be back to boots on the ground after multiple years of jetpack Call of Duty, but all of the streaks were boring and basically useless. I mean, when you bust your ass to get these streaks, you want it to pay off. And virtually none of these streaks were even remotely interesting or effective. The only positive thing I have to say about this Call of Duty's launch was its war mode, because that was by far the most fun and interesting mode in that Call of Duty, arguably one of the most fun and interesting modes in all of Call of Duty, and by far my most played mode in the game's entire life cycle. Now I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that they eventually add it to Vanguard. Number 14. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which launched with 11 maps, 29 weapons, 15 perks, 11 modes, 16 streaks, a zombies mode, and Dead Ops Arcade. Let's start out with the obvious. This game once again only launching with 11 maps. And again, only 9 of them being 6v6 is a really rocky start. On top of that, you add the sheer lack of any weapons, the fact that there was only 1 zombies map at launch after they spoiled us in Black Ops 4, and one of the additional zombies modes that the game launched with was locked to PlayStation exclusively. Not to mention, this is just an add-on that people were already pissed off about, and they didn't change it from the beta or the alpha alpha and whatnot, and that is the score streak system in this game where it didn't reset upon death. However, this game does end up slightly above World War II for a few reasons. Firstly being, I really enjoyed the Fire Team and Combined Arms modes. The fact that the Zombies mode did return after being very missed from Modern Warfare 2019, and even though it only launched with one map, D Machine was a great freaking map, and Zombies got an entire overhaul, which depending on who you ask, you either hated or loved. I'm on the side that I loved the overhaul. On top of this, the game engine reverted back to a more Black Ops 4 arcadey style, which again, depending on who you ask, you either loved or hated. I'm in the camp that loved it, because I don't really love the Modern Warfare / Warzone / Vanguard engine all that much. Ninja was back as a perk again after also being missed from Modern Warfare 2019, and we have the original minimap back, which once again was missed from Modern Warfare 2019. So sure, a lot of this could be recency bias, but at the same time, there's not really much of an argument here because it's in the 14th spot. Number 13, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which launched with 12 maps, 35 weapons, 18 perks, 12 modes, 14 streaks, and a zombies mode. I just wanted to address this right out of the gate. Zombies in Spaceland is unbelievably fun. This was the perfect direction to take this mode in to pair with this game. It was campy, fun, goofy, over the top, it knew what it was, and it absolutely embraced it. There was plenty of weapons to choose from. The downsides were that there was pretty much only one good 6v6 map in my opinion, and that was Throwback. In this game they had combat rigs, or whatever they were called, replacing specialists, which is essentially the same thing, just giving players free score streaks to go and cause chaos with. Things that they were completely undeserving of, because whether you were a good player or a bad player, you got it in the same amount of time. The supply drops once again had weapon variants in them that could be game-changing, making it pay to win, because for instance, you could only get a nuke if you had a certain variant of a certain weapon, which you got out of a supply drop. And lastly is the fact that this game was just full-blown set in space. I obviously didn't put it right in the last place spot because of that, but yeah, this one just went full-blown sci-fi, and nobody liked that. Number 12, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, which launched with 14 maps, 34 weapons, 15 perks, 12 modes, 13 score streaks, and a survival mode. With this Call of Duty game in particular, it is a very sensitive area for Call of Duty fans, because this was the first in the jetpack era. I personally look back on this game fondly. It was something new and different for the time, and although it got old by the end of the game's life cycle, I do commend Sledgehammer for doing something different with the franchise. Despite the game only having 13 score streaks, they added a whole new layer to the score streak system by allowing us to customize the score streaks. We could add certain abilities and perks to our score streaks for an added cost. In this one too, for the created class system, they also added in the pick 13 system, which did include your score streaks. And despite this game being super supply drop heavy, I actually really did love the soldier customization in it. But the downsides were, despite them trying something different, the exosuits just didn't work. It wasn't Call of Duty. Also, the zombies mode was done and they even had a teaser for it, but they held on to it until DLC 1, which, if you remember, back then you had to have the season pass to get, or you had to pay even more and get individual map packs. And the supply drop system in this was horrendous. Yes, you couldn't pay for them until later down the line, which gave you weapon variants that actually could change the game, was just disgusting and an awful decision. And it set Call of Duty down a very dark and dangerous path for many years to come. Number 11, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, which launched with 13 maps, 31 weapons, 18 perks, 12 modes, 18 streaks, and a zombies mode. Firstly, I do believe that this game, coming hot off the heels of Advanced Warfare, did have a better movement system, because a lot of the gunfights still took place on the ground. You had very limited boost to go with, and you didn't just jet straight in the air. It was more of a gradual lift, but still jetpacks. This game, oddly enough, felt like it had a ton of weapon variety despite not having a ton of weapons. Sure, 31 is still a good number, but we have seen plenty more. There was also lots of perk variety to choose from with 18 perks. There was also a good variety of score streaks once again, and they felt very powerful and deadly. And of course, I will always say this, Zombies was back, and you know, Treyarch Zombies, you just can't beat it. However, the downsides for this game, yes, the movement system was better than Advanced Warfare, but it was still a jetpack Call of Duty. There was a ton of more weapons in this game that were supposed to be there for launch that got cut and just shoved into supply boxes later down the line. I guess I could also just say this now, but supply drops, and this was arguably the most disgusting supply drop system we had. There was also only one zombies map at launch. You could get a second one if you pre-ordered. It was a remake of Derise. And I honestly didn't like this map at all. I think it was the Shadows of Evil one, and yeah, I did not vibe with it at all. And they also revamped the zombies, made it a lot more complicated than it needed to be. Sure, people who love that zombies grind got into it, but it pretty much pulled me out of zombies for years. And this was the first introduction we had to specialists, and I also do not care whatsoever for the specialist system. Yes, it was a great idea. You gave these characters some personality, you gave them a voice, you gave them a backstory. That's great and good and all. But you gave them abilities that were extremely lethal, and you got them one way or another. Once again, you could give the bad players essentially free score streaks to run around and wreak havoc with, and it just wasn't fair at all. There were some good maps in general with this game, but overall there wasn't a great selection, and the campaign was dog shit. I haven't really touched on the campaigns too much, but this one in particular is noticeably bad. I would say probably the worst campaign in COD's history. Number 10, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which launched with 16 maps, 26 weapons, 22 perks, 11 modes, 3 kill streaks, and the SPEC-OPS mode. Firstly, this game launching back in 2007 with 16 maps was amazing. To add to that, it gave us iconic maps like Overgrown, Shipment, Pipeline, Crash, and Bog. This was the first Call of Duty to introduce the Create a Class system, so once again, an absolute game changer. I mean, truly changed the entire game, and as I said in the intro, Call of Duty continues to build on the foundation of this original Modern Warfare. And the 3 set kill streaks, you can see that as you will. It was nice to have kill streaks because you felt like you were earning something by doing good. But on the flip side, compared to today, which you can't help but look at it that way, this game only had 3 kill streaks altogether. There wasn't really a ton of variety in terms of weapons, and also not really a ton of variety when it comes to modes either. Again, I know it's because a lot of the time we get spoiled today, but we're looking at this list in terms of today. You know, we're talking about how Vanguard's releasing this weekend and kind of just comparing all of the Call of Duty's launches. So a lot of this, despite it having a huge number of maps and a lot of great maps, the rest was lacking, but you also can't take away the iconography of COD 4 Modern Warfare because again, this game changed everything. Number 9, Call of Duty World at War, which launched with 13 maps, 30 weapons, 33 perks, 13 modes, 3 kill streaks, and a zombies mode. Yes, 13 maps is slightly less than Modern Warfare, but it gave us, in my mind, equally iconic maps like Dome, Cliffside, Castle, and Macon, or however you pronounce it. It also gave us more weapons and more perks, and the main reason that it gets the slight edge over the original Modern Warfare in my eyes, on top of it being my first COD that I played, so it does have a bit of a sweet spot in my heart, but it was the first Call of Duty to introduce us to the Zombies mode, which is now a staple of the franchise. The only downsides are the fact that some of the maps were too large because they made room for vehicle combat, and really it's basically just a reskin of COD 4, just back in a World War II setting, which I feel like a lot of people felt was a bit of a step back. Number 8, Call of Duty Ghosts, which launched with 15 maps, 39 weapons, 35 perks, 14 game modes, 24 streaks, and the Extinction mode. Despite this game being basically universally hated upon its release, I look back on it very fondly. I have a lot of great memories with COD Ghosts, and it's arguably the most underrated and underappreciated of the franchise. It gave us a ton of weapons. I mean, like I said, this game launched with 39 weapons, as well as a ton of perks and streaks. Again, 35 perks. That was unheard of then, and actually still unheard of now. As well as 24 streaks, which is insane. Were all of them all that useful? No, not really, but it's still a massive number. The Extinction mode was something new and fresh, and honestly, that's another thing I look back on pretty fondly. I would have been okay with every Infinity Ward game going forward having Extinction instead of Zombies, because it's one that they really could have built on and changed and evolved over time, and it could be a ton of fun if we saw it now. And depending on who you ask, you either loved or hated the soldier system. Again, the way this game worked with its prestiges, you didn't just prestige a generic profile over and over again. You had, 10 soldiers to choose from, and you prestiged each soldier, and that's how it counted as prestiges. I think that's how it worked. It added to a little bit extra of the customization, because you got like helmets and outfits and stuff like that. But I can see why people didn't like it, because some people just like the traditional prestige system and like showing off their prestige icons. The downsides, though, of course, are that although we had a ton of perks to choose from, a lot of people did not like this perk point system that we had. The map selection was pretty awful. There were only a few maps that were even remotely decent. Again, the soldier prestige system, you either loved it or hated it. The UAV became a ground streak, which is just unbelievably stupid. And there wasn't really a great weapon selection either. So this is again one of these battles with quality versus quantity. It's a very subjective game. It's either you look back on it fondly or you still see it as one of the worst Call of Duties ever, if not the worst. And I have to commend them for leaving the Modern Warfare series behind, doing something new and giving us this much content. Number 7, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which launched with 14 maps, 27 weapons, 13 perks, 9 modes, 15 streaks, a zombies mode, and Blackout. Now, some people may see this as a negative to the game, but I actually loved it, and that is that 4 of the 14 maps were returning maps from previous Call of Duties. But that to me was great because we always knew that we could fall back on these 4 maps if the others were horrendous, and I didn't really think they were. Although only having 10 new maps was a bit of a bummer. We also have to add in the fact that this game was the first Call of Duty to drop the supply drop system, which was an absolute godsend. The control mode was a new mode introduced into the franchise with this game, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite modes in Call of Duty. With us giving up supply drops, it was the first time that we had a shop and a battle pass system. This game had 3 full-fledged zombies maps at launch, and a 4th if you had the season pass. And lastly was, of course, Blackout, which was the first Call of Duty Battle Royale. Blackout walked so that Warzone could run. The downsides, though, are this is the only Call of Duty to not have a traditional campaign. There was no campaign at all. And people were absolutely pissed, and they had their voices heard, and there has been a campaign in every Call of Duty since, and I'm assuming there will continue to be. Despite them getting rid of supply drops, there was still a season pass, which was a major piss off after they were like, oh, there's no season pass in this game, and then all they did was just rename it to the Black Ops pass. And there was a very, very limited weapon and perk selection. So the reason it ends up so high, despite having a limited selection of maps, weapons, and perks, is because we had 3 freaking zombies maps at launch and a whole new battle royale called Blackout. Number 6, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, which launched with 23 maps, 37 weapons, 18 perks, 12 modes, 20 streaks, and a SPEC-OPS mode. Firstly, this is sort of a love it or hate it sort of scenario, and that is the new engine that we were playing on, or at least the most different Call of Duty engine we have ever seen. I'm in the middle. I enjoyed it for that year, but I actually liked going back to the Black Ops Cold War engine a bit better, but a lot of people really do love this engine, so to each their own. There was a huge variety of modes. You had traditional 6v6, you had 10v10, you had gunfight, you had ground war. There were a lot of streaks that felt very, very powerful. There was a ton of weapon variety, and this was the first Call of Duty with no season pass and no supply drops. Although out of the 23 maps that it launched with, only 10 of them once again were 6v6. The SPEC-OPS mode was basically unplayable. It was a buggy, horrendous mess. I didn't love a lot of the new mechanics like mounting and tactical sprinting. Dead Silence not being a perk for the first time in Call of Duty in like ever, and instead being a field upgrade. Awful, awful map design. By far the worst map design in Call of Duty's history. And the game promoted camping super heavily. I mean, even the devs themselves said they wanted to create a safe space for new players. There was no traditional mini-map either. We just got this stupid compass. And the kill streaks were once again kill streaks, not score streaks, so they also promoted camping very heavily. Number 5, Call of Duty Vanguard, which launched with 20 maps, 38 weapons, 18 perks, 16 streaks, and a zombies mode. This one was very tricky to place. Again, coming down to that quality and quantity, it's only the first weekend of the game, so it's very difficult to kind of see which maps may or may not become iconic, whether the weapons are good, bad, ugly, you know, there's so much that's left uncertain. But what isn't uncertain is the sheer amount of content that we got with this launch. Especially after coming off of Black Ops Cold War's launch, we felt like we were being absolutely spoiled with Vanguard. The game launched with 16 6v6 maps, and it has been a very long time since we got that many 6v6 maps. There are a ton of weapons to choose from. Ninja, aka Dead Silence, is a perk once again, and combat pacing is a new added mechanic to the matchmaking, which I thought was a fantastic choice because as soon as I hop onto Vanguard, I switch it immediately to the Blitz combat pacing and just have fun, chaotic, messy, awesome good time every time I hop into this game. However, for the downsides, despite Treyarch working on this zombies mode, it's severely lacking. It's not a good mode. It feels empty and like a shell of what we got in Black Ops Cold War. We are also once again back to kill streaks instead of score streaks, which is a piss off. And the World War II setting a lot of people don't love. I'm fine with it for another year, but I think after this, World War II and Call of Duty is going to be done for good. Number 4. Call of Duty Black Ops 2, which launched with 15 maps, 38 weapons, 16 perks, 17 modes, 22 streaks, and a zombies mode. This was a huge year for Call of Duty. I also must say too, I'm a bit biased on this one because this is my favorite Call of Duty. It gave us so many iconic maps like Raid, Slums, Standoff, Hijacked, Express, and many more. It was the first Call of Duty to introduce the Pick 10 Create-a-Class system. It was the first Call of Duty to introduce score streaks. There was multiple zombie experiences. You had Transit, which was a mode you loved or hated, multiple Little Zombies maps, as well as the Grief mode, I believe it was called. You had the first Call of Duty campaign ever where you got to make choices and there were multiple endings. And this was the first Call of Duty with League play, and although they didn't launch the first season until I believe it was December, the game launched with, I believe, the playlist and, you know, the selection and stuff that they kind of fixed up over time. The downsides were that there were some maps that were pretty awful, like Drone and Aftermath, which you seem to get all the time. And Transit was the only full zombies map, and not everyone loved that experience, but I certainly did. Number 3. Call of Duty Black Ops, which launched with 14 maps, 42 weapons, 15 perks, 17 modes, 15 kill streaks, and a zombies mode, as well as Dead Ops Arcade. Again, another Black Ops that gave us many iconic maps, like Nuketown, Summit, Jungle, Firing Range, and plenty of others. We had more customization unlike ever before, with little things even like soldier face paints, the introduction of COD points, which back then was not a paid-for currency, which led to us having a stellar wager match playlist. The game launched with 2 zombies maps and a Dead Ops Arcade mode, which was a new mode to the franchise then. Also arguably the best Call of Duty campaign. There was no new kill streak in this one, which did bum some people out. Also, not to mention, the game launched with 42 freaking weapons, which is just insane. On top of the game's 15 perks, this was back in the old school days where you could grind out certain challenges and then get pro perks, which added new abilities to the perks. So really you had like 30 perks. And in typical Treyarch fashion, there were some maps that were a bit too big for 6v6. Number 2. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which launched with 16 maps, 43 weapons, 16 perks, 15 modes, 15 kill streaks, and a SPEC-OPS mode. Again, it's an old school Call of Duty, so I'm gonna mention it, and that is the iconic maps. Maps like Terminal, Rust, Favela, and High Rise. Come to think of it, there's probably not a single bad map that launched with this game. More weapons and attachments and customization options than ever before at that time. Again, going back to the perks, 16 perks with pro upgrades, so really you had like 32 perks. 43 weapons is an absolutely insane amount. This was the first game to add in customizable score streaks, not like I said with Advanced Warfare, but the fact that there was 15 kill streaks in this game, it wasn't the set 1, 2, 3. You actually got to pick which 3 you wanted to use, and depending on how lethal they were or effective, it would require a different amount of kills. And that also included the game-ending nuke. However, the only real downside with this game is that there was just a lot of broken stuff. Like, you could use kill streaks to get other kill streaks, the one-man army noob tube combo, the model 1887, so there was a lot of broken things that never really got fixed, and a lot of this was very, very bad at launch. And number 1, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, which launched with 16 maps, 49 weapons, 15 perks, 15 modes, 28 streaks, SPEC-OPS mode, and a survival mode. Again, a classic Call of Duty, so it's gotta be said, the iconic freaking maps. Because we just don't get maps like these anymore. Those being Dome, Resistance, Arcaden, Hard Hat, Village, Underground, the list goes on. It launched with the most weapons in Call of Duty's history to date. With 49, we were one weapon off of 50 weapons at launch. Most games nowadays don't even finish with that many weapons. It was the first game to offer up the strike package system, so you could go with Assault, which were the more deadlier streaks that did reset upon death. You had the support system, which didn't reset upon death, but offered up mostly non-lethal streaks. And then you had these specialist abilities, which just gave you more perks. The survival mode in this game was by far the best survival mode we have gotten in Call of Duty yet, and I played that mode endlessly. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was the first Call of Duty that had its own dedicated weapon leveling system. And the only real downside for this game was a map called Downturn, which is arguably in contention for the worst of all time. And a lot of people complained, and still complained with the strike packages, that some of the support streaks were indeed very, very lethal, and they shouldn't have been in there. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my list. And feel free to suggest what ranking you'd like to see me cover next. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.